This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
This is Everything Elite, the world's best podcast devoted exclusively to all elite wrestling and the elite extended universe. I'm Aaron Bentley. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Nate, aka Epitasis. What's up, Nate?
Hello, Aaron. Hello, listeners, friends, family, loved ones. So last week, Aaron, I didn't have an answer to a BTE question for you. You asked about Adam Page tweeting about his mustache for a bit. I did correctly identify the scene, which was him in BTE sitting in a country western shirt with a mullet and mustache. It was, in fact, as we have been informed, a Tiger King reference. So I have now watched the Tiger King series, and I've caught up on all things BTE. If you have any other Tiger King inquiries, send them my way.
I literally don't, Nate. I have no Tiger King inquiries.
Okay, we'll have to throw it to Mike. I'm going to introduce Mike now. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's your old pal Iron Mike Spears. I have a lot of Tiger King inquiries, such as, have you seen any of the NWA Tex Homa shows that he promoted?
No, I know that MRT, friend of the show, was watching them and has made them available. And I think maybe they're getting covered on the Bad Wrestling podcast, but I have not watch them, of course, because I do not watch old wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean, this is really old wrestling. Like, this is the time period, like, after I left Texas, so it does have people that I watched growing up there that are all pretty bad. The only two good people who came out of my scene, at least out of this promotion when I followed it, were Lance Archer and Paul London. So, yeah. If you want to see a wrestling paintball match, I could point you to a link to watch it. It was pre-cinematic wrestling, but it is like the first cinematic wrestling match, I would argue.
All right. Not to do a whole aside on this, the cinematic wrestling thing, people have been pre-taping matches for a long time. You know, the fucking King of the Road match, the Junkyard Brawl in WCW. I'm sure there are far earlier examples. I just, didn't watch them.
Yeah.
There's only been one good one, and that was, as I've mentioned on this show before, the Goldust Roddy Piper match at WrestleMania.
The backlot brawl, I think?
Backlot brawl.
Yes. Well, Dustin Rhodes really a pioneer of those because he's in the two of the ones you've mentioned already.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was truly cinematic because it also featured the O.J. Simpson car chase.
Yes.
As part of the match.
Was shot on the set of a movie, Backlot. A little on the nose there, being a little cute with it. But
it ended in the ring.
Well, that was really my issue. Now that we are going totally aside on this, that was my issue with the Firefly Funhouse match. They should have just had it cut back to the ring for the pinfall, so you could pretend it was an actual pinfall. Well, let me ask you this: while we're on this topic, they had, of course, actual wrestling on BTE this week. They had two matches, seemingly in their entirety on BTE. They've both been added to Cage Match as actual AEW events. So I guess my questions are, is a match pre-taped for a vlog cinematic if it's bookended by other vlog bits? And two, is this going to count on the AEW official win-loss records?
Well, for the second, we have to wait and see. I mean, we have not seen a Chiron for SCU or the Young Bucks since then, so we don't necessarily know if that's the case.
So do you think they should be on the AEW official win-loss records?
At this point, sure. I mean, given the state of the world right now, if they want to count that for the win-loss records, have at it. I don't care.
Aaron?
Is it cinematic wrestling? No, of course not. Come on, Nate.
Well, then you're just making arbitrary distinctions about how much pre-tape effort distinguishes, just a pre-tape match from a cinematic match.
Well, like, I guess the real distinction you're getting at is what's the difference between the Boneyard match and Gargano Ciampa from NXT?
I suppose.
Because, like, the Firefly Funhouse match is just not a wrestling match, right?
If they had cut back to the ring and had the pinfall occur in the ring, would it count as a match?
I mean, there was no physicality inside a wrestling ring.
There was the finish was the mandible claw. He did his finisher before the pin. It was in a wrestling ring. It was just shot like not a wrestling show.
Yeah, I don't think that was a wrestling match.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm asking. If it had ended with a pin inside the ring, shot like the rest of the show, would it be a wrestling match?
I don't think so.
Was The Rock versus Eric Rowan at the WrestleMania that Mike wrote about? Was that a wrestling match?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. There was less physicality in that than in the Cena Bray Wyatt match.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be in the ring, I guess, because I think the Boneyard match was a wrestling match.
Yeah, it basically was just a buried alive match that took place at a boneyard.
Yeah, it happened outside the ring, which you have all sorts of like Falls Count Anywhere type matches. So I buy that as a wrestling match.
Yeah, just to use the laziest argument, it's just a slippery slope when you start making these distinctions about how many edits and how many camera angles and so on.
Yeah,
have to go into a match to make it no longer a match.
Well, okay, I have to preface this by saying I haven't watched the NXT match, and I don't intend on ever watching it. But I have seen some funny GIFs on the old TL.
I mean, are you to tell me you're not going to eagerly seek out a match that the whole focus about it was a wife hitting her husband in the balls and that being like the big swerve?
I mean, that makes it vaguely interesting to me.
Fair enough.
But other than that, I'm not interested. It's like an hour long or some shit, isn't it? So I don't want to watch that. But it seems to me, from what and this is all just based on discourse, have not seen the match. Cannot be clear enough
about that. Best way to make an informed statement.
It seems to me that there was a lot of like acting involved. It's like if you go back to the "I'm sorry, I love you" match.
Yeah.
But then you pre-tape that. I mean, you got like the hard close-ups on like them gently rubbing each other's hands. I don't know. I guess I would have to watch the match, but I'm not going to.
Right there. I mean, that is like the natural inclination, right? Like, there's too much acting and too many edits and camera tricks or whatever in here. But it's like all those things occur in a normal wrestling match. Like selling is acting. Pro wrestlers are constantly acting.
Okay, here's the difference. If you say, while punching someone, don't ever talk about my wife again, it's a wrestling match. If you don't, it's not.
Is that in the right order?
There's only been one wrestling match ever.
Oh.
That's my take.
What match was that? Was that the match in question?
The Boneyard match.
Oh. Okay. I didn't remember that piece of dialogue in particular.
What did you guys think about the Boneyard match? Well, I haven't gotten to do any audio since I've watched the match, so let's talk about it.
Don't know, didn't see it.
I wanted it to be worse. It was too competent. AJ is like, the shit's in the ring now, to my understanding, but actually like fully understands and embodies his character where he's like, he's like some weird fusion of Michael Hayes and Kid Rock or whatever. So he's entertaining in it. The Undertaker does the best like dialogue promo work that he's ever done in his life in that match. Cause he's the shits on the mic, but as you were referring to, the little dialogue snippets or whatever, his little lines about, hey, how old am I? That's like the most compelling stuff he's ever done as far as in dialogue. It could have been. I wish it had been goofier and worse. I wish it had been closer to the Firefly Funhouse because that was like just pure wrestler brain nonsense in a way that I enjoyed, and I get a great deal of pleasure out of the various perverted, attempted pro wrestlings of the WWE.
I feel like I agree. It wasn't bad enough. It would have fit in on like a CW show. It's like, the climactic scene of a season. I don't know what kind of shows are on the CW.
So is this what Riverdale is?
Sure, yeah.
Is that what it's even called? Fuck.
This reminded me a lot of Riverdale.
The Jughead show.
I have no clue. SB said, now Mike, you'll have a take on this. SB said it reminded her of the fight scene in The Foot Fist Way.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the landmark pieces of filmmaking and one of the greatest fight sequences of all time. She is dead right about a match I have not seen a single moment of. I'm just glad we got to talk more about Jody Hill and also a dating bride here. So.
But you are familiar with the Chuck the Truck fight scene?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
That's a part of the Mike Spears cinematic universe canon right there, buddy.
Well, it should be. It's a Carolina film.
I mean, it's really like understanding like the humanity of the South. I feel like it's one of the films that gets it. It's like that, Winter's Bone,
That's a good one.
Mississippi Burning. There's not a whole lot of really good like South Florida films. Maybe The Pest.
I was gonna say Mike is extremely on brand right now because he's talking about Jody Hill. He's wearing a tracksuit and he's claiming like 3 different states or regions at once.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's how I operate, man. Oh, sorry, Pain and Gain. There's your South Florida movie.
Oh, okay.
How dare I forget Miami, Florida's like biggest auteur, Michael Bay.
I mean, there's a great. I love Florida noir as a genre.
Absolutely.
There's a shitload of that. I will also shout out the adaptation of Dave Barry's first fiction book, Big Trouble by Barry Sonnenfeld, is a fantastic and overlooked South Florida movie. It's like pure comic mayhem in like a Elmer Leonard sort of way.
Sure.
But the climax of it has a bomb on a plane. It was supposed to come out like September 11th or whatever, so it never got a real release. Underrated.
I mean, also, another like South Florida like film, Wild Things. I mean, that's pretty.
Wild Things, nice.
Yeah. That's big Florida noir. Big Florida noir.
I was always disappointed that Bill Murray never came back for the mini Wild Things sequels.
Oh, you mean the direct-to-DVD / Cinemax ones?
Yes,
right.
They got up to like Wild Things 6 or whatever, but could never get Bill Murray back. I think the ultimate Bill Murray career move would be to appear in Wild Things 7.
I mean, whoever is behind this, you got to call his voicemail.
My biggest regret from the quarantine so far is not watching enough like very dumb, very bad movies, other than the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match.
I've been watching all the Philip Marlowe movies is what I attempted to do, except now I've got too many video games coming up on my plate, so it's going to be tough keeping that up this weekend.
So what are you going to be playing now, AB?
So Nate gave me a gentle roasting about Resident Evil 2 recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to get back into Resident Evil 2.
I'm holding you accountable, Aaron, is what I'm doing. I'm just trying to.
This is what friends do.
Yeah. Well, I've been playing the shit out of it the past couple of days, and I'm not very good at it. I get stuck regularly. I'm like really stuck right now. I'd gotten myself out of being stuck, but now it's like, as I sit here right now, I can think of like 2 little locks that I don't know the code for, a twisty thing I don't know the code for. I don't have the little thing that turns the valve in the shower. I don't have the crank. There's some sort of crank. I don't have the thing that turns the crank. I don't... in the library, there's the jack in the library that moves like the book things. I don't have the thing that operates the jack. But I've got all the rooms that are still red. I've gone into them. I've looked all over them.
So are you talking about a lot of these numerical codes, word codes that you're lacking for these locks?
Yes, but also just some literal tools I need to pick up somewhere.
So yeah, those are the tough ones. Back in the day, all video games were like, oh, you have to enter this word code and you have to go read books in game and read clues and pay attention to stuff to learn what the code is, which is like not how video games are really done anymore. Now it's just like, oh, it'll point you to the next objective and you go pick that up and come back and put it here and that's all for you. So it's really a throwback in that regard.
Yeah, well, it's hard for me. I don't have video game brain at all. It's just not a world that I inhabit.
I can't recommend it.
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I've gone back and tried to search all the rooms that are still red on the map, and haven't found anything new. So Bad news for me.
Best of luck.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Okay, so I guess we'll actually do the show at this point. I mean, that was part of the show. We're leaving all that in, of course.
Oh, yeah, no, this is all staying in.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about All Elite Wrestling on this show. True story. We're going to talk about week 27 of Dynamite, what happened, the ratings. We're going to play Elite or Delete real quick. I want to run down how you can keep up with us. We're at Everything AEW on Twitter. You can find me at Aaron Like the Car, Nate at Epitasis, Mike at Fuji Heya. You can subscribe to this podcast. Make sure that you do. You'll get it immediately as soon as it drops. You can search Everything Elite on the podcast app of your choice, including Spotify. Or you can subscribe to the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Give us a rating and a review if you're on the Apple Podcast app. And make sure you check out patreon.com/everythingelite if you just need more Aaron, Nate, and Mike. All right, Elite or Delete time. Hit the lead in, Mike.
Delete! Elite! Delete! Elite! Delete! Elite! Elite! Delete! Elite! Delete! Stop!
All right, excellent. Nate, it's customary. I start with you. What was your pick for your favorite thing of this week? I know what it was.
I don't know how this came to be customary, but of course, I have to take my victory lap. The elite performer, component, factor of this week's television was, of course, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Had a tremendous match with Hikaru Shida, and then had a tremendous promo to top it off. You know, face caked in blood, looking like a badass, still entertaining and funny. You know, has become a meme for basically the second week in a row off of these performances. And, you know, just showed that in the right circumstances, she can hang tough in this women's division. So, greatly enjoyed that. And I was just had to appreciate, you know, I think it's important to appreciate what you have while you have it. In another wrestling promotion, we would not have gotten the blood-caked promo to camera where it's like establishing how much of a badass she is and getting her character over. You know, they just would have been like, oh, that blood never happened. We're going to clean you up and sew that up and ignore it forever. So it's like, thank God we got some pro wrestling ass blood on this show.
Yeah, that match ruled. Britt stepped up and in a match scenario that probably was her best match in the promotion so far. And it's just the way that pretty much since the beginning of the year, how her character has kind of crystallized and how you could actually see confidence behind what she's doing that comes through in the ring. And then the match with Hikaru Shida ruled, and then she just gets it. And do I ever think she's going to be like the top women's wrestler in this company? No, but I think that she definitely now has a role, an unbelievable role, at least of now of being the number one heel, and it doesn't feel out of place.
This actually plays into my elite picks. I'm just going to do mine now, but my elite pick goes to whoever edited the Britt Baker segments on this show, turned this into a passable match, turned her promo into a passable promo. You have to respect it. So big shouts to whoever edited this show.
Rude.
Okay.
Rude.
Okay.
All right. Mike?
So I like the fact that maybe this is the whole pre-tape thing, and I've also seen this happen on Dark as well. But one of the big things that I thought that was kind of weird about the promotion, at least now we're now past the first year, the half year point for at least TV. We crossed that with week 27. Over the last few weeks, I've noticed more and more they understand how to use the local talent better and like the enhancement talent better, and they know how to do squash matches in a way now that is, I think the Lance Archer and Brody Lee match combined were like 4 minutes long, and they were exactly what they needed to be, and both the guys came out of those matches looking excellent. And I think that that's something that, as we're saying that now Dark is a way to kind of goose up the records and make even your lower card guys look better. They finally kind of figured out how to do these ancillary matches that don't really matter in the greater scheme of things, but do matter in how you present people, how you build people up, and like how people get ring time. And I think like, especially the last few weeks, that's been kind of impressive, especially given what's going on right now.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that they're setting up like even their underneath guys, like their QTs or whoever, to get wins over, enhancement talents. Just really old school pro wrestling stuff that tickles me. Just like, yes, I love seeing a local talent get beat by the guy at the bottom of this card. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I hope that it portends well for the future, because we're going to be seeing a lot of this over the next 8 weeks or whatever as we get closer, allegedly, to Double or Nothing, if that happens. Okay. That literally was my elite pick. That was not a bit. So, Nate, we'll move on to you.
That was definitely a bit. You can't say
Yeah, that was a bit.
No, I mean it. I believe it.
I don't believe you when you said that you believe it.
I stand by it. I believe it.
My delete.
I'm just saying, she's had like issues, even if Nate, you and some other judgmentally challenged people have liked her promos of late. They've still had plenty of bad parts to them, and this was like legitimately good. And so I really think they
didn't edit
cleaned
it
it
around
up.
this promo. It was a one-shot promo.
I don't think so. I think they cleaned it up. Could have been several takes. That's why the blood was dry, Nate.
Oh, so you're a blood dry truther is what you're saying? Is
Yes.
if we go through it like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was still dripping wet blood when she walked out of that ring.
Well, yeah, because like they had time then to like pat down the blood, man. I mean, what do you think you're gonna do when you bust
Yeah.
open your nose?
In between takes. That's what I'm saying.
So maybe I'll admit I've had a long week and I watched this thing not live. I watched the thing taped up. Are you saying that during this stand up that they had this one shot, they had different takes in a place where I did not notice any camera edits whatsoever, on that the blood was wet at one point, fresh, and then completely dried in other ones?
He's just saying they shot the promo multiple times.
Yes.
But that's
what I'm
like
saying.
There were no edits that I saw. There were no cuts.
She did it multiple times, is all he's saying.
Well, there was definitely an edit between what happened right before this and what happened once the promo started. That's what
not
I'm
a real
saying.
criticism. Doing multiple takes is not a anyway. All right.
It's
My
not.
delete is like two spots in the Michael Nakazawa match. It like worked. The match worked. It was fun. It wasn't the main event. It was, their comic relief undercard thing. And I'm even mostly fine with the baby oil. The Ultimate Venom Arm, I've never really been a big fan of. First of all, it's gross. This is, of course, the spot where Michael Nakazawa takes his jockstrap out from under his briefs, puts it on his arm, and then puts it on his opponent's face, which I actually have on a King of Pro Wrestling New Japan trading card. But it's gross. I don't like it. It's it crosses the line of being too silly, I think. And really just it's doubly gross in a time when we're supposed to be sanitary and hygienic. It's like, why are we pretending in their sketches and their promos that everybody's going to stand apart from each other? They're going to greet each other by hitting each other on the elbows. And then they go out here in the ring and the guy like puts his jock on the other guy's face. It did amuse me that he did a ripcord version of it, like a Rainmaker Venom Arm. But yeah, that was my delete. That was, just sort of takes you out of the show a little bit.
I wasn't like, maybe it is like the kind of comedy that I do like in wrestling, but this match was not as funny for me, and I can admit that it's probably like I'm not a DDT person. I like I like kind of the stuff that you'll see on Tokyo Joshi Pro, but like main vein DDT comedy has never worked for me. So like I kind of felt like that this was very much like that vein of comedy versus like actual like wrestling comedy, and it just kind of was like that. And then also, I don't know, I thought it was more kind of funny the fact that we got on National Basic Cable the phrase hentai. Like that was great. But
that was
like,
great. I did pop use that. But yeah, I'm with you. I do even like the DDT comedy that's like absurd, surrealist stuff or whatever amuses me. But the jockstrap to the face is like Dan Shoko Dino comedy, and that's just like, this is very base. I like to pretend I'm like not at this level where this is the funniest fucking thing in the world to me.
Yeah, I'm a very base person, so I really enjoyed this. I thought it was fun. I mean, it's like you've got to break the monotony of these like empty room wrestling matches one after another. So I thought this really helped with that. I thought they did a great job of kind of playing with the baby oil spot and then using it as like him not being able to chop Nakazawa. That was funny.
Yeah, even the baby oil stuff, I can like if that's his gimmick, then it's like, okay, we're gonna let him do his gimmick, and that's gonna be, how far we push it, and probably would have gone over better with the crowd. But yeah, it's just somewhere in there is where I draw the line.
I mean, they need to hire the best comedy wrestler of all time, Hollywood Stalker Chikawa, and get him in there. Like, you could just do a whole entire series of Stalker Chikawa versus Kenny Omega matches, and those will be the most highest rated things on TV. Like, who's going to talk about the This Is Your Life segment when you have Hollywood Stalker Chikawa versus Kenny Omega version 30? Like, that's going to take over the wrestling world.
I don't have a take on that.
All right.
All.
So,
who do I think is the best comedy wrestler in the world?
I do. That Hollywood Stalker's up there for sure.
I'm sorry. His current name is Konamawa Ichikawa. He lost his mask and then stole it back, and he lost his name, so he had to change his name. But yes, Stalker Chikawa. Right.
This is probably like a bad pick. Somebody's like, oh. I mean, this is showing my age, but somebody be like, oh, like Jim Carrey, I think is the funniest actor, But like, Toru Yano is very good as a comedy wrestler. I'm a big Yano fan.
The picks would be if we went back in time like 18 months, then I would say, oh, it's Orange Cassidy, and everybody would be like, oh yeah, of course, it's Orange.
Sure.
But now that's like very basic pick because he's extremely popular and on national television every week. So it's a tougher question now. How do you pick somebody off the grid?
Yeah,
Samiri.
I'm a big Natsu Sumire fan. Even is Death Yamasan a comedy character?
Yeah, she's a comedy character. I wouldn't call her a comedy wrestler.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like Orange Cassidy.
Arguments.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Orange Cassidy is. Like, I think she has that kind of role of she is a comedy character, but wrestling wise isn't necessarily like comedy. Trying to think. I mean, Sumire. I'm trying to think of other wrestlers I find funny. Like, wrestling comedy, for the most part, just doesn't rate with me.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I decided to go down that road, but there I went. Okay, I get
Hyper Masao. Hyper Masao's great.
Mike, I think it's your turn to delete something.
Yeah, and by and large, I found this to be like a really enjoyable episode. So my delete is really splitting hairs, but it was something that I've pointed out before, and given what the rest of the footage was that they used, I felt like I was like, come on. And this is kind of two things. The first thing is they constantly repeat stuff from Road 2s. Like, they pretty much replayed the entire whole thing with Cody and Shawn Spears. There was like an extra thing in there, but it was very opaquely that they were just having that there just because they needed to fill time. And then also like the Excalibur, I didn't have this in notes, but the other thing like this, like some of these like interstitial things, like the Excalibur doing the rankings thing and like doing it in a very kind of droll voice was just like, Excalibur, man, like this, if I didn't know you were Excalibur, I'd be like, is this guy sick or something? But yeah, I didn't dig like those. I thought a lot of the out of the ring stuff this episode was really strong, but those two on a pretty good episode kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, I think that's just have to give them a pass because they've taped so much and you got to stretch it out for as many weeks as you can at this point. So I can't really fault them for plugging that stuff in where it's useful and where they need to buy time at this point.
The Excalibur thing was bad, though. Like, I wrote in my notes, he sounded like he was trying to not wake up someone in the next room.
Oh, yeah, it definitely felt like that he had, like, put the baby down and knew he had to finish this thing.
It is. I mean, he must have a home recording set up, wouldn't he? Maybe not. I mean, he did the commentary on the BTE also, and it sounded the same way, like he was just using whatever cheap microphone. But, yeah, suppose he just wasn't anticipating doing this segment for television from his home.
All right, I got a weird delete, folks. Are you ready for this? I don't think you are. I can't even remember who it was, actually, last night that did this. But it's a scary theme pattern I'm seeing in pro wrestling. And here's what it is. It's male wrestlers who shave their stomach but don't shave their chest. Why? I used to see Tim Thatcher do this. I thought it was weird. Aiden English used to do it. Very weird. But why? It's Lance Archer. It was Lance Archer on this show. You leave all the chest hair on the chest. Maybe you trim it, but you leave all the chest hair on the chest, but shave the stomach completely? It's
Stomach
a
hair
weird
is weird.
fucking look.
Stomach hair is weird.
I didn't notice this. My initial reaction is I would think it makes sense for Aiden English because it seems like a very old school masculinity kind of thing. Like, oh, I got a hairy chest, but then wrestling, you have to show off your physique, so you want to see the abs or whatever. It kind of computes in that way. Like, oh, my character is masculine, so I'm going to have a hairy chest, but I want to show off my abs also.
But it looks weird. It's like, I mean, you can't do this, but you at least need like a fade. It's like hairy chest, and then there's like a line, completely hairless stomach. Just strange to me.
Hadn't noticed.
Well, look for it. Keep on the lookout for this. You'll notice.
Okay.
I need what I really want is for some people who are attracted to men to tell me whether they think this is a good or bad look. I got to know.
I think it's entirely understandable. I mean, like the chest hair on the pecs, like that's something maybe traditionally like you see a lot of, but like the happy trail, like no, like it's kind of like a thing that you are usually made fun of, so you just take care of it. Like I see the rationale behind it.
Well, I want to hear from people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like
call to action.
Call to action. I want to see all the everyone going at Aaron like the car, and I want to just see. I want to hear about Aaron's mentions just filled up about body grooming advice. I feel like this needs to happen.
Please do. But to be clear, I'm only interested in hearing from people who are attracted to men. I don't want anybody, I don't want to hear more of me and Mike and Nate talking about this issue. I might do a whole podcast series just about this, just talking to people and get their thoughts on it. Okay, that's my delete for the week. Honestly, it was a pretty good show, so there wasn't a ton that I really disliked. There was one thing that I'm concerned about, but we'll get to that in the show. Ratings for this week, weird. A weird week for ratings. AEW up slightly to 692,000 from 685. They were also up 0.01 in the demo to a 0.26, and that was good for 32nd in the demo. NXT they were up over 100,000 viewers, up to 693, so just barely above AEW in total viewers, but a 0.19 in the demo, which was up 0.04 for them, and good for 51st.
Okay, so if anyone tells you that NXT won the week and that should be the big story here, immediately delete what they're saying and remove them from your lives. Because this was a takeover. Like, to my understanding, they've basically broke up the takeovers and placed them throughout several weeks that they had, and it only resulted in a 0.04, 400th of a point jump, and 103,000 people who watched. So what does that tell you? What it tells me is that a lot of the NXT olds must really like watching wives punch their husbands in junks in wrestling matches, and good for them. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird time. People don't want to be reminded of what's going on right now. And I think that it's not necessarily something that I would call like the law of COVID-19 pandemic, but I think that we're starting to see more and more evidence that that is the case.
This is also just like some people coming back to NXT who weren't watching, I think, because if you look back through here, you were getting about 1.4, 1.5 million. In the past couple of weeks, it's been closer to 1.2, and it was down below that last week. So I think some people who just hadn't been watching NXT came back to watch. Maybe it's a WrestleMania bump. I don't know, but they came back. But yeah, I think people just don't want to watch this shit right now. There was like a theory that maybe people would come to it because there was nothing else on, but that's not true.
Yeah, people are watching news, and it's weird. The shows are a constant reminder of everything being weird. Maybe it does give some credence to the idea that wrestling is particularly attractive as a live show, because all these shows are, of course, not live, the AEW shows, and they're taped. And so, maybe that supports the whole theory of television networks throwing money at these shows. Like, hey, it's live, so people will want to watch it live. Yeah, they did another ladder match at NXT. So it's kind of like, they had a big show. They promoted all these big matches. AEW just had like the Cody match being promoted. But on the other hand, it's like, well, NXT does a ladder match every week. So how much does it really matter?
I'm interested to see what the viewership, and I don't even have a baseline, but I'm interested to see, are a lot of people going to watch this NBA horse event that's going to be on Sunday. I assume people are going to flock to it, but it would also be a reminder of the weirdness that's going on, right? So I find that confusing.
I think it's something that the things that have succeeded have been the comfort shows, the news, and the things that are an accurate enough like simulation of what it is. Like the big thing in racing is everyone seems to love the esports racing stuff. Like the esports racing stuff has gotten huge ratings enough that now they're not even just doing like stuff with NASCAR drivers, they're doing stuff with like sprint cars. Like they like it that much. So is this going to be enough of a experience to remind people of what it is? Maybe. And I think that's going to be really riveting. Also worth noting that instead of like Turner picking up more programming and stuff like this, they're kind of keeping on with what they're doing. Whereas ESPN is like, basically, if you are an esport, you're getting on ESPN right now. And I think that's kind of fascinating.
All right, let's go down what happened on Dynamite this week. I'm sure Nate was excited when the show opened with Jake Roberts for a promo. He's on a video.
So I was not excited when this came on. You're going to call me out directly. But I did think it was it was one of his better promos. And I do really like framing the show this way. It just gave it a different feel. And I like, when they mix things up and make it feel a little bit fresh and unique off the top and not like it's the same thing popping out of a can every single week.
That's something I thought it's been harder lately, but I thought that's something they did a good job with throughout the early run of this show, was making it a little different from the start each week. WWE was doing the 20-minute promos for years to start their show, so it was nice to have different stuff. Jake says, "My history will not be my destiny," which is sort of concerning now that he's tweeting about being depressed in being alone, and he's worried about himself. So now I'm concerned about Jake. He says, "Would you hop in front of a train? Would you jump out of an airplane without a parachute? Would you stand in the ring with Lance Archer and think you have a prayer of winning?" All three things end up in the same place. He vaguely starts to give Marco props for showing up. He's like, "I know, you knew no one else would want to do that. You wanted to step up and prove you're a man, but you were an idiot." I thought, well, just put him over, Jake. Come on, bud. And then he says, suggests that maybe Cody's going to lose to Shawn Spears intentionally, make it look accidental so that he doesn't have to face Lance Archer. He says, "Are you a man or a mouse?" And this was absolutely the point where my theory went out the window, and I knew Jake would not have said this if Cody was actually going to lose this match.
Yep. I thought this was one of Jake's better promos, since the first one. I feel like that between this and Road 2, he's been better at it. It's been less weird and somewhat misogynistic what he's been doing promos about, and I think that this has been one of the more solid ones he did.
All right, then we found out Chris Jericho was going to be on commentary, which we knew coming in, but then we kind of hear him on the screen, see him there. They started off with Lance Archer defeating Alan something. Jericho said his name 3 different ways during the match. I wrote down Eagleson, maybe, but they didn't give us a graphic or anything, so I apologize to Alan if you're listening. Well, just shoot us your name, and we'll shout you out next week. Archer won with the blackout, of course.
Really enjoyed Jericho on this show. He was fully inhabiting his, obnoxious, egotistical heel character, but still was regularly getting hyped up and excited about things, and really kind of matched Tony's role. And they both would see something new in wrestling happen in front of them, or make some reference that popped the other one, and just you could hear them having fun or finding a little bit of joy in that. So really was a highlight. And in a lot of other circumstances, maybe having Chris Jericho be the heel commentator for the entire show doesn't work. But in these circumstances where it's you need somebody that's going to bring the energy because there's no fans, there's no crowd, it's he's really going to be the focal point of a lot of your listening. It worked really well.
Next up was the aforementioned Hikaru Shida defeating Britt Baker with her running knee strike. I know we talked about this a little bit, but it was very good. It kind of fell apart in the middle a little bit. They had a few issues, and then I thought they kind of stumbled to the finish at the end. But other than everything else around that, and this was a decently long match, was really good. Obviously, the accidental blood was very good. Britt is here's the thing positively that I will say about Britt is that she really is starting to understand the character in a way that she can emote in the ring in a way that makes sense and ties everything together. She feels like she's starting to inhabit the character in a way she hadn't before. So I thought it was positive for everybody.
Yeah, and then when they did this promo later, just the expressions and her attitude makes it all feel real. It doesn't feel like she's putting on a heel character. You can like feel a little bit of her, she channeled some of the anger she got at being bust open or whatever it was, and you could just sort of feel that, I don't know what the word is, snarky or catty or whatever, that part of the heel character there. I also really liked the spot where she took the ref's glove for the blood and used it to apply her finisher. I can't imagine that was planned, right? It had to be an improv. I don't know, but it also just makes sense because of the whole fucking sanitary virus situation. So that amused me.
Yeah, I really feel like the little things that Britt did in this match really lend credence to what Nate's saying about her like inhabiting the character. Like the fact that she did like a very small looking famouser and immediately started taunting Billy Gunn from ringside, which one thing that would have not necessarily been an elite or delete, but I wanted to shout, Austin Gunn seemed to be having the time of his life tonight, or that last night. He seemed to be like, during the taping, he was the person that was most up and most down for everything. I think he was wearing Hikaru Shida's ring jacket during the match, and it just seemed like he was having an absolute delight. But it's interesting, like the little things that she's picking up, at least with Britt, or is it comfort, or is it things finally coming together? And it just seems like there is a natural awkwardness that I think is always going to be there with her, just because of wrestling scene, how much she wrestled before hitting the stage. Like, I have a big theory about how much people should try to wrestle when they're early in their career, and it did not happen to her, obviously, because of the whole dental school thing. But if she has enough character to make up for it, I'm willing to overlook like clunkiness as long as it works in the ring, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, early on I said, my big point of contention was that it just didn't feel authentic in any way, what she was doing. And I thought there was like other ways to go with her that could have felt more authentic. But she seems to have found some confidence in the character and maybe found some little part of her somewhere that she can draw on, which is really all you need. And if you can just hit that in and turn that up, then that can work.
Yeah, and the initial reaction to her in this promotion was not super positive, so it's easy to take that and, let her haters be her motivators. Be like, well, now I'm fucking pissed off because all these people are rude to me on Twitter or whatever. So I'm going to, when I cut a heel promo on the fans, I'm going to kind of mean it. Also, her talking to Tony directly through the camera, also very funny because they have very funny interplay. Also, she's good on Twitter. What the fuck? You seen her replies? She's good now.
No, can't say I have.
She's, if anybody makes a funny viral AEW tweet, one of the other wrestlers or whatever, 40% chance Britt's going to be in the replies saying something funny.
Nate, speaking of Twitter, what's up with you retweeting the fake AEW Unrestricted podcast?
I just feel like we have a responsibility to our followers to give them all sides of the argument. We don't want to give them a regimented and hand down our word like it's the word of God. They should be open to other ideas so they can, have us battle that with them in the marketplace of ideas, and we'll be proven correct, of course, in the end.
I don't think so. I think we do want them to take our word as gospel.
Yeah, I mean, I issued a press release today for no good reason. Like, this is exactly the exact opposite of how I believe, like, our Twitter presence should be.
Yeah, I just, honestly what it is, I just want the appearance of being fair and balanced. So we can point at that and people are like, oh, you guys are the AEW haters. You guys are too negative, constantly burying them. I can say, look, we retweeted the podcast. We like it a little bit.
I was disappointed. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I can live with
Next
that.
Next up, a lot of people can live with my disappointment, so that's no surprise.
Thriving with Aaron's disappointment.
Oh, God. I had, never mind. It's been a weird day for me.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it at that. Kenny Omega, Michael Nakazawa, they're talking backstage. They're in a what looks to be like a camper, which I think they're using for locker rooms in this era of AEW.
Did you guys ever have one of those classrooms like in a trailer because they didn't have enough room in the school?
Yeah. I went to elementary school in Eastern Kentucky, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I had a feeling. I went to elementary school in Virginia also, so I was like, oh, we're all sort of Southerners down there. Yeah, definitely. I think second grade had the outdoor trailer classroom.
Mm-hmm. It was a science class that I had.
I think it was like a computer room. They had this was, computers were vaguely new for like the school having a whole room full of computers. You could go use, you know.
Yeah,
Apple
that's
IIes.
that almost suggests
I'm
there was
sure.
not a huge budgetary problem. They had a bunch of computers, but had to put them in the trailer.
Well, when those apples came out, they were giving them away when they first were trying to get apples integrated into schools.
Did you guys ever play green globs on those things?
I don't recall that.
No. Okay.
I was a big Math Blaster person.
Math Blaster.
Yeah, a couple of the typing games. I mean, of course, Oregon Trail, because that's how things are when you're a kid in the 90s.
Yeah.
But like Green Globs, no, there was like this crazy reading game that I remember that was like almost like an RPG reading game that I've been trying to figure out. It was done by the same company that did Math Blaster, and it was tight. Like you went up a mountain, and like reading comprehensions, you get like gems and things like that.
Oh, I do remember a game where you go up a mountain and you'd have a net and you'd have to like catch fairies or something in a net.
Yes, I remember that game. This was that game.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I do remember this. Something Mountain, Treasure Mountain, something like this.
Was it Journey Up Treasure Mountain?
It's definitely in the right ballpark. I'm gonna have to look that up. Right? That was it's kind of one of those big nostalgia rushes. Green Globs was like what is it? It would give you a graph, x axis, y axis, and you'd have to do sines or cosines or tangents, to draw a graph on the screen and hit all the green globs. Anyway, go on.
That sounds awful.
I just looked up the game. It is called Super Solvers Treasure Mountain.
Super Solvers Treasure Mountain. Nailed it. I distinctly remember green globs because in math class one time we were all playing green globs as our math activity for learning sine, cosine, graphs, whatever the fuck it was. And my friend to the right of me got a high score on it. He got like the high score on the whole network. It puts a high score on there and it shows on all the computers. And I reached over and mashed on all of his keys. And in doing this, I spelled out ass. And I was like, oh, fuck, we're so fucked. I put a curse word on there. Never got in trouble for it, but that was a very, this is the kind of things you worry about in elementary school or whatever. You're like, oh, my God, I'm going to get in fake trouble because I accidentally mashed a curse word.
That's good Nate lore.
Nate lore for you, folks.
So, Kenny Omega, Michael Nakazawa, they're talking. They're going to have a tag match later. They're asking what their tag team name should be. Nakazawa says, how about the Best Friends? And Kenny, is like, I don't know. I think there's already a team like that. Orange Cassidy is in the bathroom of the camper. He walks out. He's heard everything they said. The Best Friends walk in the front door. They've also heard everything. And the two teams decide that the match later tonight will be to decide who gets to use the name Best Friends.
Great stipulation. Really in my wheelhouse. I come from a background of having a lot of name versus name matches in my wrestling, so I appreciated that they were appealing directly to me. It was as if they reached out to the screen and said, hey, Mike, you're our pal. Here's a match stipulation for you.
I was accused on Twitter that I would do a rant about how much I hated this, but I don't know. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I hate to disappoint the listeners.
It was cute. So they do the bit in this match where they do the mini skirt police thing and they do Charlie's Angels poses, right?
Yeah.
Was that not their tag team name before? Did they never have a tag team name before? Is that? Okay.
I'm not a DDT historian.
Right.
I really don't know.
I was just like, wait, wouldn't they already have a name? It's surprising that they wouldn't have a name by this stage.
I'm sure
of their
they
careers.
did.
Yeah.
I loved in this. Well, we haven't gotten to the match yet, but I loved when Tony Schiavone, of all people, is like, oh, Kenny Omega and Trent used to be a tag team. And Jericho's like, really? It's something that just really blew his mind.
Chuck.
It was him, yeah, men of low moral fiber. Right. Chuck and him, yeah.
All right, Chuck, sorry.
Yeah, that was definitely something Tony picked up from Excalibur or whatever. But yeah, that's the sort of like Jericho was, also encountering some of these things for the first time or whatever, or showing off his new pro wrestling fandom, having gotten out of the WWE bubble. That's one of the underrated thrills of this promotion is, having Chris Jericho give Sugar Dunkerton a new name, and that's just his name now. Like, it's still like, oh yeah, this is like a whole generation of the indies is being elevated now because of AEW.
It's something that also, I felt this more with Jericho commentary and something we didn't really talk about earlier. Jericho was willing to shut out everyone's back history, like to a level that not necessarily you would see Tony and JR and Excalibur do, like talking about even stuff like about a lot of New Japan was mentioned here, especially at a time where I mean, Jericho does have the contract that lets him go do New Japan stuff, so it's not like they can do anything to stop him. But I thought like that was kind of interesting. Talking about DDT, like it was a very much like acknowledging like we are in the greater wrestling world. These things happen, and seeing that come from like Chris Jericho of all people is still one of those like very bizarre, but not in a bad way. It's like Chris Jericho is someone who keeps tabs on the rest of the wrestling world, of which you'd expect someone like Chris Jericho wouldn't. It was kind of refreshing like that.
Next, we saw a video promo for the Young Bucks book, which had some very poor voiceovers, I thought.
Yeah, not Nick's best role here. They put this on every episode of BTE now, so this was one where I felt Mike's complaint that it's like, yeah, I don't actually need to see this again.
And they should have done this. They should have inverted these, because then they did Excalibur doing the ratings report, and if they had done this first, the Matt and Nick voiceovers would have sounded a lot better by comparison. Then we got a video building up the Mox Jake Hager feud and match. We got Mox saying, "Me and Jake Hager are not in the business of putting smiles on people's faces. This is going to be ugly and violent." Jake Hager says he's not trying to be a hero. He's trying to make zeros. Great Jake Hager line. And then we see Jake Hager's wife, Catalina. And she tells us if Jake doesn't come home a winner, he doesn't come home at all.
That was a funny line. I like that. That gives you a real window into their relationship, and a whole new depth that I never would have imagined for Jake Hager.
I thought this was like a great segment for Jake Hager. Like, he's usually someone who's so like wooden doing lines, but maybe it is like with his wife as a part of it, he's doing fight camp stuff. I thought this was like a really like strong point of him. I mean, I'm not trying to be a hero, I'm trying to make zeros. That's a great line. Like, that's an all-timer line in my mind. So I thought that this was a great piece of footage.
They also put over, this wasn't public, but I had a Bellator fight coming up. So I've been training for this Bellator fight. Very funny for that to coexist with the tag team match about taking the best friend's name, which ends in a jockstrap stink face. Like, that's sort of you kind of get some cognitive dissonance when you're like, oh, this is a real MMA fighter, and he's in the same wrestling promotion as Ultimate Venom Arm.
That's fair. They've fucked around and gotten me to just be excited for this match and like literally think that it's going to be good, which I know I've done this before when it comes to Jake Hager, but I'm back.
I mean, I'm stoked about it because I have been this was very entertaining. I'm hoping somehow we get more Catalina Hager in the promotion, because I thought that she was really kind of a nice, I feel like having her like in that one match at Revolution kind of like made her as like almost a character in this, but she was great in these things. And just like the idea and the dynamic there, I think is very interesting. I think it's a very kind of interesting and cool dynamic that I'm excited for this match. I think it could be real interesting.
This could border on cinematic wrestling, because the match has been shot. Dave said he heard the match was really good, but I have to imagine with Moxley and Hager, it's going to be a walk-in brawl, possibly around the arena and shit. Like, do we really think they're going to go straight ahead match in the ring? I kind of suspect they won't. So we'll have to see how much, wandering they do.
Well, we also know that Jim Ross called the match. So we'll get JR back on commentary for one match only, which honestly is like what we've been saying they should do with him, just kind of pull him out for the big matches. This is a title match, so maybe this is Tony's way of trying this out, see if it works. Next is when we got the Cody Shawn Spears Road 2 video. Then we saw the match which we talked about, the best friends defeating Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa. They can continue to be the best friends. Trent pinned Nakazawa with strong zero. Then we got another Brody Lee video. He pulls up in his vehicle. A woman puts his blazer on him after he gets out of the car. The creepers are there waiting for him. Their clothes are wrinkly. Two of them have like athletic type shirts on. One guy's got on...
There were kind of tracksuits. Let's call a spade a spade. This was an assault on me.
Those were not tracksuits, Mike.
Okay, good. Then it wasn't an assault on me. Then I loved it.
Okay. One guy has on a button-up and tie. Very funny this is maybe just a me thing, but it's also just objectively true. A black dress shirt is bad. Don't wear a black dress shirt. But especially if you're going to wear a black dress shirt, you have to have a black tie on. You can't wear a black dress shirt with a colored tie, you look like a fuck.
It's a you thing, man.
No, it's not.
No, I'm with it. I'm with him on this.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying that's unique to you, but it is something I would never care about.
I'm just saying that this guy doesn't, like, the guy in the black shirt and the gold tie doesn't look any better or classier than the guys in the athletic shirts. It's like a similarly, like, goofy ass look.
Okay.
I mean, it looks like someone about to hit the club. Like, that's like a club look that I feel like is.
It looks like a guy who's 19 and nobody ever taught him how to dress, and he thinks this is the way you put on a shirt and tie, but really, you look dumb. You look bad.
And just don't wear shirts and ties without jackets or waistcoats.
Yes.
Just in general.
Never.
Well, welcome to AB and My's menswear podcast.
We're not turning this into the real shooter hours.
Very funny. Okay. Brody says, what do you think people see when they look at you in the airport? Well, nobody. They think, why the fuck are you traveling right now, buddy? That's what they think. Do you think it's power? Brody says he's here to make everyone's life excellent, give them unlimited power, unlimited success. Get your act together and show me that you want it. And then he grabs the tie guy and says, I have an opportunity for you. And they walk off. They walk into the building, actually. That's what happens.
Great segment. I mean, I love Brody, Mr. Brody Lee as a character. I mean, for someone who didn't do as many promos as you would think, I thought this was a kind of an amusing thing. I know they're still cribbing on what they're cribbing on, but I think that this could have had a very short lifespan, like of only working once and then it kind of turns off. But I think that they have had some longevity with this bit, and I think that Brody, like, he's going to be upper mid-carder, but he's interesting. And I think that's as well as anyone could hope for this.
I kind of think this would be going better if they just abandoned the whole Dark Order thing and brought him in to do this, but with somehow different. He can still have his underlings and whatnot, but I think the Dark Order thing and how much people didn't like that taints what Brody is doing. I feel like those two things could have been divorced.
They could have, yeah, they could have. And, he was playing from a handicap because, people were predisposed to not liking the Dark Order, yes. But I think we turned the corner on the Dark Order, and I like this aspect of it. This character computes as the top of a evil organization kind of thing. So, I don't object to it now. They still all look like putties. The masks are still a goofy aesthetic. That could be improved on.
Well, and part of the goofy aesthetic has been the, like, Under Armour shirts and athleisure pants. So maybe this is going to be part of cleaning all that up, and they'll look better. So that would be good. This is where the Britt backstage interview occurs. She's got the blood dried on her face. She says Shida is a dirty wrestler. She's lucky she didn't touch my teeth. But even if she did, I could fix them because I'm a dentist.
Yeah, fucking in your face. Viewers at home. Eat that shit.
Then we got another Mox Hager video. This one a little heavier on highlighting his MMA career, but basically it was a lot like the first. It was just like they did two versions, couldn't decide which one to use, so they just, fuck it, let's just put them both on. We're getting the real hard sell for this match.
It felt like a UFC build. It felt like when you watch an MMA card and one of the fights ends in like the first round, so then they have to really fill time to get to the next fight, like before the main event, so they run like 3 video packages before the main event starts. That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah, like this felt like something out of like the UFC Uncensored or like the Countdown specials. And I like this kind of stuff when like it's a vein of storytelling that I think is not done very well in wrestling, but I think that this segment, we're talking ourselves into really getting excited about this Jake Hager match, and I don't know how I feel about this, seeing how right I was about the previous Jake Hager match.
Then we got a Matt Hardy video. He says he's going to respond to Chris Jericho. He's in his garage, and the audio is just so bad. It's the echo is really bad. It's just like, come on, buddy, you got lots of money. We got to figure out a way to record this somewhere where it's going to sound better. He says, you've insulted my allies, the elite. Let's look at who you surround yourself with. I don't think I'm going to repeat the one about Sammy Guevara because I'm pretty confident it's problematic. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
There was a lot of problematic things in this promo.
He says, proud and powerful? More like loud and devourable.
That's like the biggest reach for a rhyme.
And he said he wanted to eat them.
Right. Well, devourable rhymes with powerful, so use that. Yeah.
And then he made a reference about Puerto Rican food, and it just was like,
dude.
yeah, Matt has too much leash. Yeah. Matt has too much leash in this promotion.
He does have too much leash, and this is why I wanted him to be at the top of the Dark Order, because he would have to adjust the character into the corporate weird setting, and he wouldn't be be able to do the same broken shtick that he wanted to be doing, right? Like he would have to evolve it, and he hasn't evolved it. He's doing whatever he wants, and we need him to evolve it or put it in a box and some sort of creative constraints on there, so we don't just get pure unfiltered Matt Hardy.
Which is what this promo was, including the production values, which that's always been a thing with me, and the whole deletion, the Matt Hardy extended universe thing. Like the production quality in this drives me insane. So
he said Jake Hager seems smart, but you have him brainwashed. I'm like, who has ever thought Jake Hager seems smart? Come on, Matt Hardy. Give me a break. You tried to recruit my most loyal soldier, Vanguard 1. Never. Then he tells Vanguard to bring him his shirt, and it's a Matt Hardy shirt, but he says, no, I don't want that one. I want the Jericho shirt. And Vanguard says the shirt is fire. Can't believe I'm having to say this.
But again, Vanguard 1 was the highlight of the segment, even though it was like goofy.
I mean, Vanguard 1 might be the best part of this entire angle now. So, and I hate the segment because they didn't have Chris Jericho arguing with a drone for 5 minutes. So, yeah.
And then Vanguard 1 clarifies that he meant a dumpster fire. And Matt Hardy closes this by challenging Chris Jericho to the Elite Deletion at the Hardy compound. So, folks, whatever weird... what's the word I want? Fuck. This is compelling. Whatever weird way that Nate wants to describe cinematic wrestling, this is actually going to be what people think of as cinematic wrestling, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, it could be bad. We'll see. Jericho might go in there and just be like, no, I'm not doing that. And they might tighten it up.
That's true. Yeah. Jericho could be the saving grace of this because Jericho does have complete control over himself and influence on others. He could be like, nah, we're just going to do a thing where like I argue with this drone and I want to attack the drone. And that would be incredible.
Jericho's going to be like, no, Matt, you do the camera. Me and Vanguard 1 got this. We're just going to, we'll carry these 20 minutes of the show.
That would be my favorite 20 minutes of this. If somehow you can get El Lindemann involved in this would be my favorite 20 minutes of this promotion if that happens.
Brody Lee came out for a match after this. He defeated Lee Johnson, who we saw on Dark this past week. Brody won with the spinning discus lariat. This was different gear, right?
This is his third set of gear.
Okay, why can't he just like tone down the gear and do something that's like corporate looking?
Because they're still a spooky cult, remember? This is whole like, I mean, how much do you know about like Scientology? Like there's levels to this. I'm gonna defend this.
I know a lot about Scientology.
I did a speech on Scientology in college, my public speaking course. That was my I don't remember what the assignment was, like persuasive presentation or whatever, but I did Scientology.
I mean, like I feel like that they're gonna try to have him like L. Ron Hubbard like in this. Like so he has like you have like the clean like business kind of thing, and then behind it you have the spookiness. Like just like Scientology. Yeah,
but then his public-facing costume should not be the spooky part. It should be the corporate part.
Well, did you ever see photos of L. Ron Hubbard on this whatever that boat is?
Yeah.
That like he.
Oh, he should. Have
where he had like a full nautical.
He should wrestle in a naval
yes.
uniform. Yeah.
Yes.
That would be funny.
Refer to him as the Admiral.
What
Brody Lee?
What the Dark Order needs is a Tom Cruise character. It's got to be like. Who could be it should be like Marco. They should have if they managed to steal Marco from Jurassic Express. That would have been great if he was just like their Tom Cruise.
I could get into this. I could really get into this. Yeah.
There's something there.
Is Brody married?
Yes.
Yeah, Brody has kids.
Well, he's going to have to disappear his wife, unfortunately, to really play this out.
Oh.
They murder people.
Yeah, she's going to have to be locked on a ship for 10 years or whatever. Yeah, nobody's seen her in like 20 years.
Yeah.
They did allegedly there was a big Leah Remini called the police to find Shelly Miscavige, and they said they saw her on one of the bases in like the middle of like the Inland Empire, but no one saw photos of her. So she's alive apparently.
Fake.
Yeah, good odds. Do not. This is why I'm glad I never used my real last name on this podcast. In case any, I'm not a suppressive person. Please do not come to my home, Scientologist.
Wait, do you have Scientologist family members?
No, but if they've identified you as a suppressive person in the media, then they'll harass you.
Oh, that's true.
I'll talk about something off air.
Okay, excellent. Can't wait. There was another Cody Shawn Spears video, kind of just recapping their feud. If you'd forgotten about everything that built up to their pay-per-view match, and then we got the first round of the TNT Championship Tournament. Cody defeats Shawn Spears with a figure four, but it was a pinfall.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Shawn Spears was trying to lay back because that's how you're supposed to like alleviate the tension and the pressure of it, and he didn't notice that Aubrey counted 3 on it.
Best part.
He couldn't hear the counting or feel it slapping the fucking.
He was in too much pain. This
was dumb as fuck. This was stupid as
part
shit. I
of the
hated
match. This is. I mean, how many times?
Dumb.
How many times in WCW did they do the figure four? Ric Flair would have somebody in the figure four, and they leaned back and they'd go and count the pin. They would never, ever, ever get it, and this just retroactively justified like 10 years of Ric Flair false finishes, that they would bother to count the pinfall on a figure four, because it actually can work. Somebody can with it. This was your thrice yearly New Japan countout finish, just to legitimize the countout finish. This Cody right here doing work to retroactively make Ric Flair even better. And I just love that Shawn Spears is like lost. He just fucking lost. That's the correct thing that he should be doing. We don't need them to try and be convincing us that he's a up and coming guy who's going to be a star or whatever. He's just not as good as Cody.
And you now have the perspective Cody versus Darby or Cody versus Sammy Guevara, where the winner will become the winner of the Jack Whitehall Regional. I mean, like, makes perfect sense.
I don't hate the idea of the finish. It's just it wasn't built up to a point where it made any sense in the scheme of the match, that he was so, if they had worked his leg the whole match and he's like limping around and barely, and then you sell this figure four for long enough that he's like, whatever, that's fine. But this was just like, he started shaking his hands, which looked really dumb. I just hated it. I hated it.
So the sort of like the twitching or whatever that he did, that does bother me when a lot of people do it. I actually thought it was toned down enough here that it kind of worked. It did. It kind of feel like a flat finish for the end of your main event on television show. Again, a problem that would have been ameliorated by putting the best match in the main event, which of course was the Britt Baker match. But they're just scared to do that. So
they're scared to win. Like, you put Britt Baker in the main event, we don't even have to have this whole like low ratings thing about people say like, oh, NXT had more ratings. It would have won the show. Like, they would have had 1 million people, and I mean, it would have been amazing. So yeah, Nate's entirely right on this.
Thank you, Mike. Tony, stop being scared of success.
I saw a lot of people really liked this match, and I was not one of those people. Did you guys?
I thought it was better than the last one.
Yeah, it was better than the last one, but it was fine. I thought it was fine. I went 3 on this. I give it a gentleman's 3.
I liked the first. I think I was the only person in the world who liked the first match.
Well, there we go. Boom. Yeah. We figured this out.
Yeah,
it just was like one of those.
You were just won over by Arn Anderson coming out, so that's not even.
Yeah.
That did work for me a lot.
I was standing right next to you. I saw how you reacted during Arn Anderson appearing, and to be fair, that's also like how I am when like I'm trying to think of like
El Lindemann.
El Lindemann, yes, I mean exactly. When I was at Double or Nothing and El Lindemann came out, I pretty much was like jumping up and down and clapping out of sheer joy to see the special boy show up. But yeah, no, this is like the thing that got me, and I wanted y'all's opinions since I watched this so divorced from like engagement and context today. What was your thoughts about them like talking about, okay, this is playoff hockey? Like Jericho made the line about playoff hockey and that we're not going to disqualify people here. We're going to let things go a little bit more because we want to have a decision. Because I thought that there is an extent to do that, and then there is setting people up on barricades and going through tables, and I thought that was stretching it a little bit, like especially in a promotion where DQs are so rare. Like, this felt like one of the more egregious stretchings of a DQ.
I think the barricades are legal just because they're already out there. I don't really have a justification for that, but it didn't so many of these things are just like, in the moment, did that bother me or did it not? That didn't really bother me. The table does seem like it crosses whatever that threshold is into where now it's you're breaking a rule or something.
Yeah, but the way they did the table was that he didn't throw him in. He didn't put him through the table. It like happened off of a move later in the match or whatever.
Kind of like with Kenny versus Okada, where he went through the table much later. It just was something that, like, I normally wouldn't have registered it unless Jericho made that big point about it being like the playoffs and we don't want to do buys here, which is kind of funny in this company that's had some really weird tournaments so far.
Yeah, I mean, I do. That's a good justification to protect the referees a little bit and just be like, hey, if she doesn't want to throw out the match, it's our main event. Shit. Certainly prefer that to JR is kind of trying to do the same thing when he talks about the long tag count or whatever, but it comes off differently coming from him.
Yeah, it didn't bother me in the moment, but like you said, once they started talking about it, I was like, well, wait a second, this really shouldn't be happening. So maybe instead of trying to justify it, you should just go on with your life and not worry about it.
I mean, trust that, like, your listeners and your viewers' intelligence, like, they understand the circumstances of, hey, you're in a tournament to decide the first champion here. You don't want to just go like have like a DQ in the first match. So.
I would definitely rather have them justify it just because it might not have chafed us when they did it, but there are 200,000, 400,000 other people that were like, well, that's illegal. So better to lampshade it.
Yeah, I was just interested in that because since I wasn't around last night, I wanted to know what y'all's thoughts were because I didn't see them.
Well, first of all, read my tweets. Go back. Go through my whole timeline. Read every tweet that you've missed.
I mean, I put you over today in a press release.
Oh, was I? Should I read that? Was I mentioned in that? No.
Well, you didn't recommend that I should buy 7 tracksuits.
That's fine. I didn't want to not have read it and be mentioned in it because then I would feel bad. But since I wasn't, it's all good.
Oh no, you're a good big cat.
Wait, which one of us is Big Cat?
Big cat is what I call, like, it's a general phrase that I use for friends.
I'm
I call
pretty
him
sure
Big Cat.
you only called Aaron Bentley Big Cat on this show, which I just thought was a Kentucky thing.
Oh no, I would never make a Cats reference.
Okay.
I can't do that in the Spears household.
Right.
I wouldn't be. Yeah. I have Cards alums in my family. My dad.
Speaking of another place that Mike claims.
I never claimed Kentucky in my life.
No, but you're claiming Louisville right now.
Yeah, my parents are.
Louisville bullshit.
I say these things because I know that if I want to make sure there's still a spot at me at the Thanksgiving table this year. If I go Cats, then I get in trouble. So yeah.
Well, you're gonna be regretful when you need a spot at my Thanksgiving table, Mike.
Okay.
Household.
There we go. Yeah.
I'll let you come and the door will be locked. Hey, we have a Patreon. It's called patreon.com/everythingelite. I really would love for you to check it out. If you are curious, we put up one episode for free last week. It's called This Is Cody. It's a deep dive into Cody's whole career from OVW to AEW. Rich Craich from Voices of Wrestling joined me. It is completely free. You can just go to our Patreon, check it out for free. And if you like it, you can give us a subscription. We've got 3 tiers. $3 tier, $5 tier, $8 tier. All the things you get are explained on the website. This week on Monday, we had an episode of the Everything Elite Extended Universe with Kara and Nate. And it basically turned into a discussion of like, what is wrestling and what is art? But not as pretentious as it sounds. It was a fun conversation.
I mean, it probably verged into pretentious, but it was my attempt was to clarify that something being art does not fucking really mean anything, and it's not really a meaningful denotation. So that was my attempt. But yeah, it's might be somewhat relevant considering all the discourse about pre-tape matches.
Oh yeah, it anticipated the Boneyard match. There's no doubt about that, and that hadn't happened yet when we recorded. Next week, I'm pretty sure I've got a special episode lined up for you, but I'm not going to jinx it until it's been recorded and it's ready to go. So But there'll be a good one up next week. Regardless, there'll be a good episode on Monday. We got a few things in the can just in case. That's patreon.com/everythingelite. It's still early in the month, so you get a full month's of value out of your subscription. No dark preview. April 15 from an undisclosed location.
Several undisclosed locations.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Boxley and Hager was filmed at Daly's place, right? So we got the men's world championship empty arena match. You know, very different from all the other matches they've had over the last several weeks. Jon Moxley will defend the title against Jake Hager. And then we'll get another quarterfinal match in the TNT Championship Tournament with Lance Archer taking on Colt Cabana. I don't have any clue what that match looks like, so I'm pretty curious.
Both these are kind of interesting matches to see how they go, because this empty arena match, they made a big deal about it being no holds barred, and impressions are that this actually ended up being a pretty strong match. So I'll be interested to see this. And then Archer versus Cabana, like, this is going to be something, and I'm excited to see what it is.
This is good. My longstanding theory about Colt Cabana is that he is a more universal matchup than almost any other wrestler. There's not a wrestler out there that Colt Cabana doesn't match up well against. Like, he can do comedy, he can wrestle, little guys in the spot fest. He can do catch can, technical stuff with Zack Sabre or whatever. And he's deceptively big. So, like, he can stand next to Lance Archer and go toe-to-toe with him, and it doesn't look ridiculous. So this is a sort of test of that theory.
Only other note, there's not a lot of news happening around AEW of late. We used to have a lot of little news and notes to talk about at the end of the show, but
the world's kind of stopped a little bit, yeah.
The wrestling world for sure has kind of stopped. So, but we do have this, as suggested on this very show. Anna Jay signed to All Elite Wrestling. A great pickup, smart move. Thanks for listening, Tony.
Yeah, good pickup. We all heard. I mean, her potential is obvious. So, came from QT's school, very natural addition. Especially when they, presumably taped a whole bunch right there. Like, if she's going to be reappearing on these upcoming shows, may as well get a little good PR out of signing her to a deal. I've
been kind of impressed by the people that from QT school who have shown up over the last few weeks, because they've had these, I guess these people who have been students. I know that some of them wrestle in the greater Georgia area. I think one or two of them maybe showed up on NWA Power, but I've been kind of impressed by it. It's definitely something that, you kind of see this, and in a time where I think the North American, especially United States and Canada, wrestling scene is very depleted. It's very encouraging to see people come out and go okay, you definitely have a lot of potential ways to go there, but I see what's going. I can project out to see how you are, and I thought that Anna Jay was a pretty exciting match against Hikaru Shida last week, so I'm excited to see what this could lead to.
And she was in the crowd at at last night's Dynamite, Wednesday night's Dynamite. So I would expect to see her on Dark or maybe even on Dynamite in the coming weeks. I feel like we've talked about this or implied this as if everybody knows, but in case you don't know, they apparently have taped everything up to what would be Double or Nothing on May 23rd, if that can still happen. So everything else should be in the can.
I think Vegas did get shut down through May. So if it's gonna happen, then it would have to be another taped on a remote location kind of situation.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Las Vegas that did it or if there's the MGM properties, but there was something that said that they are closed through Memorial Day. So I know last week we were kind of saying we don't think this is going to happen. Now we're 90% certain that it's not going to happen, at least in that fashion. So, but yeah, everything's taped up until that last show, or what was supposed to be that.
I just don't think at the end of May we're going to be back into having crowds of 10,000 people in buildings.
No, I think in the United States, I don't think we're looking until late this summer, to be quite honest. Not to be a bummer. I mean, I've seen how South Korea is one of the people that are highest towards it, and they're still talking about May for their baseball league, and they've been the best country about response and treating it, and they're still saying it's going to be about a month.
I saw on South Korean trains, they have the handles that you hold over your head if you're standing on the train, and then the handles rotate now, and they disinfect themselves as you pull them through. It's like those hand towels where you pull it through and it's supposed to self-clean. They have those on their subway handles. They're fucking on top of shit, man.
Wow.
Must be
That's
nice
amazing.
to work in or to live in a functional state, huh?
Must be nice. I mean, they treat esports how they should be treated. They have a fun baseball league that's going to be playing games this year and not just some weird Arizonan, like, cult compound kind of thing. Like, have you, like, I know that Nate, baseball, you hate baseball, but have either of you read, like, this idea of what they want to do for Major League Baseball? It is functionally insane.
Yeah, it rules, I think.
I mean, it's real cult hours. It's some real bullshit, but it's interesting.
Everybody has to live in the same place for like 4.5 months. They're
Playing
gonna-
like 5 games a day.
Yeah, the umpires will just like be watching on video. You can't use the dugouts. The players have to sit in the stands 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Oh, no pitcher catcher meetings.
No pitcher catcher meetings. They will be using high school stadiums potentially because they have to get all these games in. Like,
Well, here's my question: Can you hold the runner?
I don't know. Like, that's an interesting question.
You got to
yeah.
get within 6 feet to hold the runner on base.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, can you tag? I mean, there's a lot of problems with baseball and not being able to get
Agreed.
with sports and not being able to get within 6 feet of each other.
This is why we need to support esports, and we need to look to our friends in South Korea who have figured it out.
Yeah, they have
They're
very
gonna have
good pop
baseball up and
music, I
running.
hear.
Great pop music. They have
Great
the best
films.
the best internet in the world. They spent time to have like the fastest internet
They
in the
do.
world.
I
We
think
should
they
just
have a
be more
lot
like-
of a fair amount of censorship on the internet. I will mention that.
a lot of censorship and have been under a lot of different military.
Whoa, 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 whoa! We're gonna have to take all this out. I forgot the ad read we're supposed to do this week. This episode of Everything Elite, sponsored by the government of South Korea.
love it.
Visit
Yay.
South
We love
Korea. Not now, but in a few months. Visit South Korea. All right, take all that other shit out. Like, thank you.
Yeah. I got in post.
Okay, well, I think that's everything for this week. So make sure you're following us on Twitter at EverythingAEW. You can find it by our display name, which is Visit South Korea. I'm at Aaron Like the Car. Nate is at Epitasis. Mike is at Fuji Heya. Check out patreon.com/everythingelite. And, stay home, stay far away from each other, and wash your hands. That's it for Mike. For Nate, I'm Aaron. We'll see you next week.
I